In 1990, Iraq invaded its tiny neighbor, the state of Kuwait, beginning the Gulf War, and in response, the largest international coalition since World War II mobilized against the Iraqis. Which raises a question. From Western states like Britain and the US to other Arab countries like Egypt, Syria, and Saudi Arabia, why were so many nations so eager to oppose the Iraqis? And for that matter, why did Iraq try to take Kuwait in the first place? What was it that caused the Gulf War? Well, the short and simple answer to that is this guy. Saddam Hussein, self-described modern-day Nebuchadnezzar, and the authoritarian president of Iraq from 1979 till 2003. He claimed Kuwait, as, with Iraq, it was once part of Ottoman Mesopotamia. Also, Kuwait was an easy target with a lot of oil. The better answer, though, goes back to ideas of Arab nationalism and 20th century ideological splits within the Arab world. Saddam Hussein was a Ba'athist, a disciple of the Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party formed in Syria in the 1950s. It espoused a vision of an Arab socialist revolution designed to wipe away their artificial borders, drawn largely by Europeans after World War I. The modern Iraqi state was carved out of the Ottoman Empire by Britain and France, with borders designed to further British imperial interests, and something similar is actually true of Kuwait as well. Saddam Hussein's Iraqi population consisted of Sunni and Shia Muslim Arabs, with a Kurdish minority in the north and the Shia the overall majority. A Sunni Muslim running a secular state, Saddam maintained control by nepotism and terror, brutally repressing the non-Arab Kurds especially. He also sought cross-sectarian appeal, though, through pan-Arabist nationalism. By Saddam's inauguration in 1979, the world's 20-odd Arab countries were independent. They were also fiercely, broadly divided into two rival camps. On the one side, there were conservative Arab monarchies, which drew legitimacy from traditionalist Sunni Islam. Kuwait was among them, and Saudi Arabia, by far, was the strongest. Not particularly open societies, they were nevertheless happy to cooperate with the West in combating godless socialists in the midst of the Cold War. On the other side, there were Arab nationalist states like Ba'athist Iraq and Syria, although they had actually fallen out. Besides Iraq, Egypt was the most powerful, and these states embraced revolutionary socialism, anti-Western, and anti-imperial sentiments, often with Soviet backing. By 1990, Saddam had antagonized both camps, but at least for a little while, even his ideological arch-rivals looked at Iraq with cautious optimism. Why? Well, Saddam's arrival coincided with the toppling of Iran's Shah in the Iranian Revolution, which replaced its absolutist monarch with a republican theocracy headed by the Shia cleric Ruhollah Khomeini. Khomeini made it clear that he intended to export his revolution, and that scared Saddam, whose own Shia population might have toppled him. The popular revolt also scared the Sunni monarchies across the Gulf, so when Iraq attacked Iran in 1980, they backed Saddam. The oil-rich Gulf states, notably the Saudis, the United Arab Emirates, and Kuwait, sent billions to Baghdad, with material support also coming from the West. The Iran-Iraq War was horrific, and it was also pointless, ending in 1988 with no territorial or regime changes and a price of at least 1 million dead. Having failed in Iran, Saddam reverted to rallying Arabs at home and abroad by decrying an imperialist West intervening in their affairs. Particularly, he lambasted US support for the State of Israel, which, to many an Arab, was built on stolen Arab land. Rhetorically, he tore into the American-friendly Gulf governments, which had backed him against the Ayatollah. Then, Saddam took the view that in waging war on Iran, Iraq had effectively been fighting the Gulf monarchies' battles for them, and refused to repay billions they had given him in loans. Iraq also accused Kuwait and the UAE of drilling for more oil than they could under agreed OPEC quotas, and that was probably true. The result was the devaluation of oil, which hit Iraqi finances hard. Then, in mid-July 1990, Iraq accused the Kuwaitis, this time without any real evidence, of having been siphoning off more oil from under Iraqi territory, and of waging an economic war against them. The result of Saddam's tone was immediate, and not in Iraq's favor. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the UAE aligned with their ideological opponents, the republics Egypt and Syria. Egypt was the most populous state in the Arab world, but it had, up until then, been politically isolated after signing a peace accord with Israel. Egypt's Hosni Mubarak saw Saddam as an extremist and a bit of a loon who only inhibited negotiations on the future of Palestinian Arabs. On the other hand, Saddam won tentative support for his harsh anti-Israeli stance from Jordan, fierce support from the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and support, or at least indifference, from many ordinary Arabs in a variety of countries. Originally, every Arab state had wanted to A. resolve the coming crisis peacefully, and B. keep it an Arab matter. But when Saddam shifted from rhetoric to moving around soldiers, and then actually invaded Kuwait in August 1990, things changed. The United Nations Security Council, including both the United States and the USSR, condemned the invasion and demanded that the Iraqis withdraw. But practically, Kuwait was Saddam's. On the 7th of August, US President George H.W. Bush announced the beginning of Operation Desert Shield, a multinational effort to defend a threatened Saudi Arabia, which hosted a Kuwaiti government in exile, and to pressure Iraq to withdraw from Kuwait as ordered by the Security Council. Eventually, nearly 1 million troops from 35 states deployed to Saudi Arabia at the invitation of Saudi King Fahd. The UN also hit Iraq with sanctions. The hope was still that Saddam could be made to leave Kuwait voluntarily, something he had no intention of doing. As soon as they had control, the Iraqis had set up a puppet Ba'athist regime in Kuwait, and then it was annexed as the 19th province of Iraq at the end of August. It wasn't until November that the Security Council gave Saddam a firm ultimatum to withdraw by January 15, 1991, or face military intervention. Obviously, he didn't budge, but Iraq did mass forces near the Saudi border, begin a crackdown in Kuwait, and start parading Western hostages in front of cameras. The US and its Western allies, primarily the UK, had two reasons for reacting to the invasion. One was a matter of principle. Saddam had declared Kuwait to be Iraqi by pointing to provincial borders of the Ottoman Empire from a century previously, but regardless, naked expansion by force flew in the face of the UN Charter. Also, Western economies relied on oil, and by adding Kuwait's supply to Iraq's own reserves, Saddam controlled a lot of it. Had he used his million-man army to, say, attack the Saudis, control of the Persian Gulf could have been his, with influence over a third of the world's oil supply. So, when the UN deadline came and passed, the coalition launched Operation Desert Storm and attacked. A massive air campaign was unleashed against the Iraqis. Over the course of the next month, some 88,000 tons of explosives devastated infrastructure across the country and crippled the capability of the Iraqi military. Saddam retaliated by firing off rockets at Israel, with missile strikes against the coalition in Saudi Arabia, and a brief occupation of a Saudi border town at the end of January. He was quickly repulsed, and in mid-February, coalition ground forces crossed the Iraqi border. By the 27th, Kuwait was liberated, mostly by Kuwaiti, other Arab, and British soldiers, while hundreds of thousands of Americans entered Iraq itself. The Iraqi army mounted a poor defense, and in retreat they set alight hundreds of Kuwaiti oil wells. By the 28th of February, southern Iraq was occupied and the war effectively won. On the condition that Iraq left Kuwait alone, the coalition left Saddam in power, stuck dealing with uprisings in the south and the Kurdish north of Iraq. Of course, eventually, the US would remove Saddam Hussein, but that's the story of another war and a less savvy Bush. For now, find out more about the Arab world in the videos on French Algeria and Morocco's odd attempt to join the EU to the left. And as always, I've been James, and I'll see you there.